this is all I did to start. I kind of divided it, right? So not very complex. And then I said, okay, well, so we've got an eye here. There'll be a shadow coming down the side of the nose. We placed a shadow. Shadow will be down in here. We'll have another shadow in this eye socket. There's going to be a shadow on the side of the cheek. This shadow is going to run into that one. There'll be a shadow on the top lip, but not on the bottom lip, and then underneath. And that was the basic form. And then I just kind of backfilled it. Came up in here. And that was basically the sketch. I mean, again, 30 seconds. If I decide that I'm not happy with this, I think that the chin should be lower, or that I need to move this stuff down. It's nothing, right? It's nothing. I kind of just pull this out and I'll reestablish the mouth lower. Here's the chin. And it'll be down in here. And then when I fill my lights, I'll just adjust it. If I want the eyes wider, I'll just kind of push them out when I put in my lights. Again, so when I put in my lights, let's say I want the guy to look more like a deer than a human being with eyes on the side of his head instead of straight forward, right? Less of a predator. So when I put in my lights, instead of going up against this edge, my lights would be used to push back into the eye socket. Same on this side. Just push back in and change the shape of it. Now the eyes are further apart. Same down in here. I want this mouth pushed down from the original place. When I fill my lights, I just establish it lower. Even down in here, I push the chin down. I will eventually go back in and tackle my shadows and reestablish them. But so when I do that, now I establish them further down than the original starting point. And now I'm kind of in line with what I want. My eyes are wider, my chin is further away. But I can manipulate this while it's a very, very simple and very lean sketch. I can manipulate it as much as I want. All right, and so I'm going to put down so this is an extreme shadow, and I'm going to put down a moderate light, and I'm going to cheat on all this stuff I'm going to do. So there's our quick sketch. I'm now just going to fill in all of my lights. And again, I want to be careful when I'm filling my lights so that I leave my shadows established. And again, if I had subject matter in front of me, as I put my lights in, I'd be checking the shapes of them against the reference material. Like in this case, I don't have any reference material. I've completely made this up. But you can see, like, look at it as I'm getting rid of the white canvas, and I'm putting in an actual value that makes more sense relative to the shadow, how the face starts to feel more solid. All right, and again, even like kind of pushing here. Just get that filtrum. Change the shape of the lips a little bit. Again, I'll go back in and I'll kind of clean all of this stuff up later on. Right, so there I've now got a light and a shadow. And again, what are we at, like 2 minutes? And I'm not taking great care. I'm just scribbling. So now I'm going to start to turn the form. Just want to create an admixture. I'm going to cheat a little bit from the way that I show you to do gradients just for the interest of time. So I've just created a single value. So this is a form shadow. This is a form shadow. And so I'm going to start there and I'm just going to break up the edge. Just dissolve it so that it's no longer sharp. And I'm going to have to come back and then clean it up from the shadowed side. So this is going to be a form shadow. This will be a form shadow. This is going to be a form shadow like this whole way down, but this is going to stay relatively sharp up here. And this is going to get bigger as it comes down here, just because the shape is more rounded. But you're going around short bone here, but soft tissue here. Okay. I'm just going to go back in and grab shadow again, and I'm just going to kind of soften the edge on this side. Again, just trying to create gradients, because gradients explain dimension. They explain form. So I'm just going to turn this, just going to soften this edge a little bit, because this is actually a form shadow as well. This one to be cast. This is form. Now, mind you, no reflections or highlights, just a little bit of an explanation of form. So without even cleaning it up, I'm now just going to drop in a few highlights. No reflections, just highlights. Just great. I'm actually going to go in. I'm going to do a little bit of reflection, right? Rather than kind of skipping past it. I'm going to do a little bit of reflection. And again, I'm kind of winging these shades as I go. But so in my shadows, I could open up a little bit of the white of the eye. And again, I'm using a brush that's a little bit clumsy for this, right? So in the shadow, I'm still using a shadow shade. But there's the white of the eye. There's a little bit of the brow, maybe even a little bit of something under the eye. On the other side, same thing. But you can see the eye. I've placed the eye. Same on this side. Here's the white of the eye. Kind of get it on both sides. So I haven't actually drawn an eye. What I've done is I've put in some reflections to explain the white of the eye using shadow shades. And look at how the eyes now come to life. Now, again, this is very basic. I'm not going crazy trying to detail it, but if I just go down, if I do this and then I kind of move across the whole painting, I can then come back and do another pass and with a smaller brush and really detail that stuff. Same here, a little bit of reflection in here. Just adds a little bit more character, right? I'm now going to go, and so that would be my shadow. So I hit extreme shadow, so I only have one step lighter. Now in my lights, I can now do the same thing. I can go one step darker in my lights and then one step lighter. So one step darker, maybe explain in here a little bit more. Maybe this comes down. Right, and all I'm doing is I'm working within the system you've been given in block one. Right? Darken the bulb of the nose a little bit. Right. Again, I'm kind of winging this, so it's so in here we'll get darker shade in here. I'll say you guys got a little bit of a 5 o'clock shadow. Kind of turn the form over here a little bit. Right. Even just give a little bit of a furrow to the brow. Right. You can see it starting to come together. And I'm not really refining it. From here, if I just drop in a few highlights, right? So I did one step darker in my lights. Now I go one step lighter. Right, and so and all I'm doing is adding in just some accents. Thank you. And I'm going to drop down to a smaller brush eventually. And so in here, just a highlight. And again, if you have reference, this becomes really easy because you're just putting it where it goes based on the photograph as you're looking, right? But there you go. A 10-minute face without any reference. Right? And so Again, I can go back in. I can keep going back into this thing and refining it, right? So I could go back in with my extreme shadows now if I want to. Go in and I can define this eye now, change the shape of it, right? Get the eyebrow in a little bit better. Right? But I can go in and I can start detailing this stuff, being much more specific now that it's in general terms. Right? And if you understand how to use values and edges, it doesn't take much to figure out, like, okay, this edge needs to be sharper, this edge needs to be softer in order to get more and more volume, right? So if I want this cheek to really jump, the nose to pull forward, and this to feel like it rolls around, I make this edge sharper. It gives a greater impression of the nose casting the shadow. At the same time, I don't want the nose to have a sharp edge on this side, so I've got to then create a better gradient over here. And as I get a greater discrepancy between this sharp edge and this gradient, the nose starts to become more and more three-dimensional. I mean, look at that separation in there. This feels rounded. This feels like a distance from here to here. But that's basically it. And mind you, this image is 2 inches tall. If this were a 6-inch head, I'd be able to go in and render this stuff. Like, again, even that eye, I can go in here and I could build out even a reflection in the eye down in here. And even at this tiny little scale, I still have latitude to put in some of these things that read as details. I mean, the eye becomes pretty solid, all things considered. I don't have enough room in here to even put in a fold in the lid. The brush is too big to make a mark. And, you know, just to give you an idea of the scale, this is a number 1. It's one of the smallest brushes you can get. This painting is so small that this brush doesn't fit. If I scale this up and triple the size of it, we're talking about a 6-inch head. It's 2/3 of actual size, maybe. Now I could work with just about any brush and build in details. Yeah, so it's not again, if you understand how the things work, values, right? I made a shadow, I made a light, and then I put gradients where they go to create volume, and then I just play the edges, sharp edges against gradients to create depth and volume. It just comes together. The fact that it's a nose or an eye, like you see, like I didn't paint an eye or a nose, but they're all there. Painted very basic shapes. And I started with a scribble. And if the scribble's wrong, I just keep scribbling until I like it, right? I don't have to do a comprehensive drawing at the beginning, right? While it's just a scribble. And I can use a rag and just wipe away, like you see me using my thumb, but you take a rag, this stuff wipes away with no problem. And then you can just establish what you want right on top of it. The bigger you're drawing, the easier it is to capture your proportions. When you get small, right? If something's really small, like 1/8 of an inch, 1/2 centimeter, and your drawing is wildly off. But if you're 1/2 centimeter off on something 3 times that size, it's barely visible in the drawing. So if you're working at a decent scale, even some minor mistakes, they're going to disappear into the piece. All good? So you understand what I was talking about as far as your scribble now. There's no benefit. There's no benefit in doing something complex and failing. There's absolutely zero benefit. There's nothing to learn from it. Something simple sets the stage, helps you to formulate in your subconscious to formulate exactly how it works. And once you understand how it works, your brain can then figure out how to apply what you know to more complex subjects. There's a reason they don't teach addition with 5-digit numbers to start. It's exactly the same as 1-digit numbers, but why don't they teach it that way? Well, because it's easier to understand the idea in its simplest form, and then figure out how to apply that basic understanding to more complex subject matter or more complex math. Always start simple. Make sense of it. You wanted the first piece you want it to be a no possible way of failing kind of piece, because it's going to inform you. And then the next piece, you'll have a sense of what you should tackle based on the first one. If it was easy, you can really kind of rev it up a little bit. And if it was still tough, so you take it one step bigger, one step more complicated. Okay?